guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Bree if you are new here, and in today's video I want to go through my foundations and my primers and declutter some of them. It's been a while since I've gone through them. I have quite a bit, probably too much is what one would argue. So if you guys are interested in seeing me go through my foundations and primers, then just keep on watching. I do want to preface this by saying I'm not going to include concealers in this video because A, I don't have that many. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I have 7 concealers total, and I like 6 of them. So typically if I buy a new concealer, unless it's like so fucking bad that I immediately return it, if I buy it and like it's just kind of okay, I will typically use it like right in this area and on my chin just to cover up like acne and acne scarring, and that's usually just how I will get rid of one. So I like the vast majority of the concealers that I have over there, so I'm not going to even go through them, to be honest with you. It's the same 7 that you've been seeing, well, same 6 you've been seeing over and over again, and then I'm trying a new one. So it's not really, there's nothing exciting happening over there. But I have 15 foundations and 16 primers. Let's just go ahead and jump into it. I'm going to start off with primer because I want to. First things first, I'm going to include this one in this video. Let me take the plastic off of it. I have the plastic here because it has the thing on it. I'm on a hunt to try to find some sort of dupe, replacement, something similar. Probably not going to find an exact dupe, but something similar to the Becca First Light priming filter, the one that's kind of purpley and brightening and shiny and hydrating and really good smelling, and it just feels so good on my face and it smells so good when I apply it. And Becca is going out of business, so I am on the hunt to find something to replace this. I am not going to allow myself, I know that as I'm filming this, it'll be over by the time that this video comes up, but as I'm filming this, Ulta is having their 21 days of beauty, and I know that these primers are a part of it and they're going to be a really good deal, but I am not going to let myself buy them because I don't want to buy into that like, oh, I need to buy a whole bunch of them because the company is going to go away and then I'm not going to ever be able to get it again kind of thing. I would rather find something that's out there that I'm not going to have to constantly be like, oh my god, I can only use so little because it's going away. Like, I'm not going to buy into that. With all that being said, one, I'm not getting rid of. It's like halfway gone, but I'm not getting rid of it right now. But I am on the hunt to try to find primers that are similar to this, function closely enough, and I do intend to eventually do a video about that once I find one. But with that being said, let me put you right there. This was the first one that I tried. Obviously, color completely wrong. But in my mind, I was like, glowy, could work. If not, it could be a dupe for Becca Backlight, which is another one that I do actually really enjoy. But I just thought I'd give it a try. To be completely honest, I've tried it once. The smell is fucking atrocious. I don't know what, I understand that there's a lot of people out there, this is what it looks like by the way, I understand that there's a lot of people out there that do not like fragrance in their primers. That's what it looks like. It honestly on the skin looks pretty, it's texturally very similar. It's very thin, very moisturizing, it's got a little bit of a sheen to it. This one does have just the littlest tiniest little bit of glitter to it, but like not super noticeable, especially not under foundation. Anyways, what I was saying was, I understand that a lot of people don't like fragrance in their base products, but for the love of God, Makeup Revolution, put something in yours, because this, it just smells like wet paint, and like, it's just not good. It was not pleasant to put on my skin. I did not enjoy having it on my skin because the smell was just, you know, you put it on your nose and then that's all you're smelling. So it's just, it's not good. Like I said, I have the little thing because I intend to return this. Next up, one that I recently tried, again, to try to find a dupe for First Light, is the Revlon Rose Glow Face Gloss. I have heard some people talk about this on YouTube, and it did look really interesting, even before I considered that it might be a close dupe to the First Light Primer. It is pink, and it has, like, again, a very thin quality to it. It goes almost completely, like, just blends into the skin almost completely. Has just the littlest bit of sheen to it. And again, just the slightest kind of rose goldy mica to it. It's not glitter by any means. It just has just kind of the slightest rose gold sheen to it. Really, really pretty. Does look really, really good on the skin. It smells like roses, which I, to be completely honest with you, fucking hate. But I am looking past it for this primer because I like the way that it makes my skin look. It's not an overpowering rose scent. It's just, I would prefer it not to smell like roses. But I guess in the grand scheme of things, if my choice is rose or wet paint and paint thinner, then I'm going to go with rose. So I'm going to go ahead and keep this one for now. It is still very, very new to me. I've tried it like 2 or 3 times, but I have enjoyed it for what I have tried of it. On almost the exact same vein, this is the Wet n Wild Primer Serum, which my hand is going to be wild by the time that I'm done with this. First things first, I don't know why it bothers me so much that it's a glass container and a glass dropper. I feel like I would prefer it to be a plastic dropper. It's the sound. The sound bothers me. Also the fear of the little dropper breaking. But it is a super, super thin, as you can see, it's like dripping down my hand, primer. Very kind of just really thin, hydrating. Doesn't really feel like it does a whole lot. This one does get slightly tacky as it starts to dry down. This one, on the other hand, smells like roses your great-great-grandma's house would smell like. It's just, honestly, it's so thin that it's like tedious to apply because you're like, how do I like put it in my hands and then rub it? So do I do the Instagram thing where I like drip it on my face? And then when you do that, like by the time you've gotten it on your forehead, the first one's like already dripping down and you're like, oh dear God. It's tedious to work with. Doesn't really feel like it does a whole lot, and the smell is not okay. Is this technically a primer? I include it in my primers. I wear this more as a primer than anything else. I will wear this as a primer. I mix it in with my foundation. I love it. I'm not really a huge, like, I don't really wear cream makeup, so I can't really wear this as a liquid highlight, although it is gorgeous. It's a liquid highlight. When I tried it on in my ARC video, I will link that up in the eye and down below. But I wear this mostly as a primer. I fucking love this. I have talked about this a lot recently on my channel in a couple different videos, so I'm not going to go too much into detail. I will swatch it, since apparently I'm swatching every single one of them. To be completely honest with you, in my opinion, if you really, really like Becca Backlight Priming Filter, you could just get this instead. It has a very similar effect, if not better. I like the consistency of this better than the Becca one, and also its multi-use capabilities. It just feels good. It has a really good consistency to it that's just a little bit thicker, a little bit easier to work with than a lot of like really shimmery primers. It's shimmery and glowy without being glittery, which is really nice, especially when you're mixing it in with foundations. And so for that, I will never be getting rid of this. I love this so, so, so much. This is, since I didn't already say it, the Auric Glow Lust, and I wear the shade Selenite. Next up is the Colourpop Pretty Fresh Hyaluronic Acid Primer. I'm gonna hate myself for doing this, but let me focus you guys in right on this really quick. It's like starting to separate and get like chunky in there. It's really, I just noticed this. It's very not cute. As you can also see up here, it comes out of the top of the pump, which is really unpleasant. And every time I go to squirt this out, it like, see, you can see like chunks up there. Every time I go to squirt it out, I get like a thick chunk before I get like the actual primer. It's nice. In my opinion, this was actually almost too hydrating, and that's coming from somebody with dry skin. Like, I could wear this and then wear like my most mattifying foundation, and my skin was still incredibly dewy after. So like, if that's something that you're looking for, that's awesome. maybe have this open as like your sole primer, so like your only primer, so you run through it quicker, because apparently it doesn't last very long. I haven't had this long at all. What's the expiration on this? Does it not have one? I know I tried this in a video. I can't remember if I tried it in my like huge Colourpop haul that I did like right when I very first started my channel, or if it was in a later Ulta haul. But regardless, it would have been between June and August of last year. So like really it hasn't even been open for a year. And it's real yucky. I'm not even gonna swatch that because I don't want to touch it. Another new one I have been loving is the Wet n Wild Impossible Primer. This one's super cool. Another one I've been trying or talking about a lot recently on my channel, so I'm not gonna go too in depth into it, but it is kind of a silicone style primer that hydrates, blurs, mattifies, smooths, does all the things. Like look at how nice my hand looks right there. It also has a really interesting cooling sensation to it, but it is completely silicone free, which is super cool. But I really like this. I've been loving it, and definitely gonna go ahead and keep this one. I'm gonna go ahead and get this one out of the way. This is my NYX Primer Oil. I use this every single day. I don't use it all over my face. What I'll do is I'll take like a single drop and I will put it underneath my eyes, and it hydrates my under eyes. It makes concealer go on better. I don't like have super like creasy under eyes when I use this. I love it. It's awesome. If you're somebody that really likes the Smashbox Primer Oil, this is a total dupe for it. Next up is the e.l.f. Glow Primer Stick. I do actually really enjoy this. It smells really good. How much do I have left? I have that much left of it. It smells really good. It's very lightly coconutty. It fades away pretty quickly. It feels good on the skin. It doesn't feel like it does a whole lot, but it definitely does hydrate, and it gets pretty tacky when you're applying it. So I do enjoy it. I'm gonna go ahead and keep it. I don't foresee myself repurchasing this in the future unless, hear me out here, this is the perfect type of primer to take traveling with you. If you're going on a plane, you don't have to worry about it exploding. If you're like going up elevations and then coming back down, it's not going to explode, it's not going to leak, it's not going to do anything. It's like the perfect traveling primer. So I could see myself in the future, if I ever travel one day, that I will probably repurchase this if I have gotten rid of this one already. But for like just having it home, it's not like I don't run to this primer every single time I do my makeup. I do use it relatively often though, and I've had it for quite a while, and it hasn't like gotten funky or anything like that. The only thing that I will say with this is you kind of have to work in sections. So I will put it on one side, blend it in, put it on the other side, blend it in, and then like do the rest of my face and blend it in. Because if you kind of just go in, it starts to dry. Like if you go like all over your face, it starts to dry before you can like get in to really blend it in. So you have to work in sections, but that's not like the hugest deal in the world. On kind of the same vein, this is the e.l.f. Puff Puff Primer. This got hemp-derived cannabis sativa in it. It's nice. Like, my biggest complaint is, I love that it has a pump, but my biggest complaint with it is that when you go to squirt it out, you get like a hard spot before you actually get primer. So let me get rid of that. And now I will get the primer. So I'm always wasting a little bit of it. And I squirted out way too much right there. But it's starting to get a little bit chunky and funky. Like, as you can see, it's not blending out really easily. You know, actually, yeah, it's not blending out very well. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that one too, because I think it's reaching a point where it's just starting to get too thick. It's a decent primer. It was never really my favorite, but it honestly felt more like a moisturizer than really anything else. It didn't really do much for my makeup. I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of it though. Next up is the NYX Bear With Me Primer Jelly. This is what the inside looks like. It's a clear jello-like consistency. I have actually used quite a fucking bit of this. But what's wild is like it always goes back to like a flat surface. Let me scoop some out. It really does feel like jello. It's a very interesting texture. See, it's all like thick, and then you blend it out and it kind of blends into like a water-like texture, and then it gets really, really tacky. So it's really good for holding on makeup for a really long time. It's got good hydration to it. I do really enjoy that product. I wish it wasn't in a jar. Honestly though, what I usually do when I'm doing my makeup is I have like a specific, like a brush that I'll just like dip in and I'll just like paint it on my face. But it does get very tacky. I really like that primer. I'm like clearly a very big fan of NYX primers. All the rest of my primers except for one are all NYX primers, so that's where we're at. This one is the High Glass primer, and this has been on sale at Ulta for a while, so I feel like they are, actually I'm going to compare these two head to head. High Glass has been on sale on Ulta for a while, so I am concerned that they're going to discontinue it, but it's a really nice primer. I'm going to compare it head to head with the Bear With Me Radiant Perfecting Primer. They're very kind of similar. So first things first, let's go ahead and talk about the Bear With Me primer. Look how big that hole is. And I'll show you why that's an issue, because once it comes out in a giant blob that you can barely control. Compare that head to head with the teeny tiny little hole on the High Glass primer that makes it much easier to just control how little you want out. There's definitely a color difference between them. High Glass does come in a couple different shades. I have the lightest one, Moonbeam, and then the Bear With Me one comes only in one, which is this shade right here. Let me blendy. So this is this one right here. That's the Bear With Me one, and then High Glass right there. So again, definitely a very large color difference between the two. Texturally, they feel very similar. Neither of them have like an overwhelming smell to them or anything like that. With that being said, the Bear With Me one is too deep for me, so it's kind of deepens my foundation a little bit. Now I'm just mixing them together on my hand. It does deepen my foundation just a little bit, which is not the greatest, does have the greatest shine to them. But both of them overall feel very similarly. The Bear With Me one has a little bit more of like an oily texture to them. I would assume that is probably the cannabis sativa seed oil that is in it. But when it comes down to actual preference between the two, I prefer High Glass over this one. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of Bear With Me. Now, obviously, if you're of a deeper complexion with me, if you need more hydration, you might actually prefer the Bear With Me one, or if High Glass goes away, then you could try the Bear With Me one. With that being said, both of these are, but especially High Glass in Moonbeam, are very similar in effect to Becca Backlight Priming Filter. So if, you know, that's your favorite primer and you're like, oh dear God, the brand's going away, like what am I gonna do? Try out NYX High Glass. You'll probably actually really like it. Next up is the NYX Marshmallow Primer. This one is actually pretty new to me. I like it, I'm gonna keep it. I just don't know that I'd purchase it in the future. I love the smell. I just don't, it's like, it's a very whipped texture. See, when I first tried this, I expected it to be closer to what the Wet n Wild Impossible primer is. It's really not. This primer's acting real funky on my hand because, you know, there's like 17 layers of primer here. It's just okay. I'm gonna finish it off because I don't hate it. I just don't see myself repurchasing it in the future. I could also probably see myself decluttering it in the future, but as of right now, I use it often enough to keep it, to justify keeping it. It's not that similar to any of the other primers that I'm keeping. Next up is the Smashbox Vitamin Glow Primer. I really like this primer. I like it a lot. It's got a nice orangey citrusy, it's just, all I smell is marshmallow. It's got a nice orange citrusy scent to it. It's like a gel consistency. It feels really good going on the skin. It's hydrating. It's got a little bit of a shine to it. It dries down just a little bit tacky, which does help with makeup. It's a very nice primer. I'm honestly kind of waiting for NYX to kind of dupe it because I feel like a lot of NYX primers are, especially like their original primers, were all just straight dupes of Smashbox primers. So I kind of am expecting NYX to dupe it. We'll see. But I do really like it, and I do plan to keep it and finish it off. Last but not least for primers is the, my hands are so slippery. Last but not least is the NYX, I keep wanting to say Wet n Wild. The NYX Bright Maker Primer. I tried this at the same time that I tried the Marshmallow Primer. Again, it's another one that's like, the more I look at this primer and play around with this primer, obviously the color is not correct, but the more that I play around with this primer, I'm beginning to wonder if it could be a good replacement for the First Light Primer. It does do a really good job at brightening, and it has some of that kind of citrusy, vitamin-y like quality to it that I feel like would be a really good replacement. Like, look at how much brighter my hand looks. So I'm kind of wondering if that might be in the running for a replacement. I will report back. I'm gonna go ahead and keep it. I know I talked about this in my other video, but I feel like my biggest gripe with this is the price compared to how much product you get. This is 0.67 fluid ounces, so you don't get a lot of product, and this was not that cheap. I want to say it was like $13 or $14. Whereas almost every one of these other primers is an ounce. So I don't really get why it's so much smaller. But yeah, that's where I'm at. I'm gonna go ahead and keep it for now. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into foundation now. I'm gonna compare a lot of these head to head. For reference, myself personally, I prefer a high medium to fuller coverage foundation. However, I am not very picky about the finish. I do pretty much almost always set my foundation down with a loose powder, so matte, dewy, satin doesn't really make much of a difference to me, especially when it comes like, if I'm wearing a more mattifying foundation, I'll wear a more hydrating primer kind of thing. My perfect like dream type of foundation is like a full coverage, hydrating satin foundation that sets really well with powder and lasts really long all day. I know I have a really like high standard there. And I have a couple of those, to be honest with you. But when it comes to finish, I'm kind of all over the place. I do tend to lean more towards a more hydrating foundation that I can just set with a powder. So that's where we're at. Let's talk about these foundations. First things first, these are the e.l.f. Camo Cc Creams. I am perfectly in between these two shades right here, Fair 120N and Light 210N, so I have to mix them together. That's not really a huge deal to me whatsoever. I do like that these have really good skincare in them, as well as SPF, although I do still wear SPF underneath my makeup every single day. But, and I would recommend that you do too as well. My smallest issue with this foundation, because it's just one, this foundation is that if you try to build it up too much, it does tend to get a little bit cakey, so you really have to work in really, really thin layers with it. But I do enjoy the way that these look on my skin, and they last decently well. They're not super, super long lasting. I do have much longer lasting foundations, but they last probably like 6 to 8-ish hours without minimal wear down. And I do enjoy them. Also, I counted 15 foundations. Did these count as 2 or 1? Because if they count as 1, then I only had 14 foundations. So, gonna go ahead and keep those. This is the, looking real nasty in here. This is the L'Oreal Pro Glow foundation. I don't have very much left. There's like that much left in there. I used to adore this foundation. I wore like, it was like all I wore. It, you know, was like my ride or die foundation. It is a pretty decent shade match for me. It's 202 Creamy Natural. It's, over the years, I kind of learned that the sunscreen that's in it tends to peek through. Like, it'll have little spots that'll leave behind on your skin. And once I realized that, I started to float away from wearing this all the time. I also feel like I have to use quite a decent amount to get like a good layer on my skin. So I've always felt like I went through this very, very quickly. It's a nice foundation. I'm just gonna go ahead and get rid of this. This one's just gonna go straight in the trash because there's not very much left in here, but I am gonna go ahead and get rid of that. As a direct comparison though, this is the L'Oreal Age Perfect Radiant Serum Foundation with SPF of 50. For reference, Pro Glow has SPF 15, So this has SPF 50 in it. I am in the shade 25 Cream Beige. I fucking love this. It's got better coverage, higher SPF, really good shade match for me. It's a little bit deep for me right now, but during like the summery times, it's a really good shade match for me. That's just when I bought this. But I do really like this. I like this a hell of a lot more than Pro Glow. And it's just a really nice, hydrating foundation. It's not super full coverage, but I really like this. This one also mixes really, really well with other foundations. My favorite one to mix it with would be L'Oreal Freshware Foundation. These two mixed together is like my dream foundation. I love them so, so, so much. So I'm gonna go ahead and keep this. Let's talk about this one really quick since it's already in my hand. I wear the shade 420. That doesn't, it's just for, oh, True Beige. This one has SPF of 25 in it. I don't really need to talk about this foundation too much. It's like everyone's favorite, and it's for a really good fucking reason. This was, when I was listing off like all of the things that I was looking for in a foundation, this is one of the ones that met all of the criteria. This one was one of the ones that met all of the criteria for the foundation. It's medium to full coverage. It's hydrating, satin, sets really well with powder, mixes really well, shade match, fucking perfect. Love everything about this foundation. Only complaint that I have, tiniest little complaint that I have, is that, and maybe I'm the only one that does this, but here's an example right here. So I'm running out of this one. So granted, this one has the doe foot, but like I'll unscrew it and I'll even do it with, I don't want to open any of these other ones because it'll make a fucking mess. But I'll even take like the little tube for the pump and I'll like use that to smear it all over my face. This one doesn't come apart. So once the pump stops collecting the foundation, that's it. You can't get the rest of it out. I've tried so many times, it just does not come off. So that's kind of a shitty thing. I wish that that could be changed, but it is what it is. This one was already in my hands again, so let's go ahead and talk about this. Pure 4-in-1 Love Your Selfie Foundation. This is the second and only other foundation that I was talking about when I said high coverage, satin finish, hydrating, lasts really long throughout the day. Like, perfect foundation. These two right here. If I could only have two foundations, it would be these two. But I love trying makeup and I love foundation, so I have a lot more than that. But this is another one that is my absolute favorite. This one is almost running out. I honestly think my favorite part about it is that once it's getting closer to the end, it has the doe foot. That makes it so much better. But yeah, such a great foundation. 100 fucking shades. Wow. What are the other brands doing if Pure can release 100 shades of a foundation? So definitely gonna go ahead and keep that. Let's find another one that I'm gonna get rid of. How about that? The ABH Luminous Foundation. I'm in the shade 200W. Their shades were always super weird because like that's definitely neutral. It's definitely not W. Their undertones were like very leaned one way or the other. It was all right. It's, to me, this foundation was very, very, very similar to, not that one, to this one, the Maybelline Dewy Smooth Foundation. Price jump. Very, very big price jump. In my opinion, this was not worth the money. Packaging's cute. Packaging is also completely identical to Nars, so there's that. It's not like they went out of their way with this packaging right here. It's just nice glass packaging. I think this is kind of funky, to be honest with you. I remember the brand saying there was a specific reason why it said foundation, and I think it was so that makeup artists could see it in their kit and be like, ah, my foundation. But if you're looking at it from this side and you can't figure out that that's a foundation, just saying. So it's I've used the vast majority of it. It doesn't excite me. I can't even honestly remember the last time that I put it on. Oh, by the way, another thing to add in there. Pump, right? Okay. Okay. I'm gonna one full pump it, okay? You get such a small amount. Half the time, it didn't do it that time, but half the time the foundation pump would get stuck and then I'd have to like manually lift it back up to push it back down again to get more out. It's just not very good foundation. It's not bad, but like I'm not like running out to go buy one again kind of thing. We already talked about this. Why do I keep fucking trying to say Wet n Wild? Maybelline Dewy and Smooth. I'm in the shade 120 Classic Ivory. It's okay. Honestly, I think I'm gonna get rid of it. And I think I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of Matte and Poreless, also in 120 Classic Ivory. They're just boring to me. Listen, I know it's a foundation. They're not supposed to be that exciting, but I just don't like, I don't get much from them. They're like low medium coverage. They're like, honestly, I don't understand how they define these as dewy and smooth or matte and poreless. They have the same fucking finish on my skin at least. They like last like half or like 3/4 of the day. They're just like really boring. They don't have a pump, so you gotta like pour it out or like take a brush and like stick it in and paint it on your face. It's just, I'm over them. I don't ever reach for them. I'm over them. I'm aware that in some countries they have pumps. What the fuck are we doing? We don't have pumps. Next up is the Maybelline Superstay foundation. I am in the shade 120 Classic Ivory. Super mattifying foundation, super long lasting, super full coverage. I do really, really like this foundation. It is a hair too dark for me, just a smidge. I like to use this foundation as a mixer with other foundations that are either too light or too dewy, not enough coverage, all of the above. It does make a really, really good mixing foundation. I do wear it by itself occasionally when, you know, it actually matches me, like during the summer. But I do really enjoy this foundation. I'm gonna go ahead and keep it. The foundation that I have been most often mixing in with Superstay has been the Morphe Filter Effect Soft Focus Foundation. I am in the shade Light 4. Definitely too light for me, as you can see. This foundation's interesting. It's still very new to me, so I don't have like a fully formed opinion on it yet. It's okay. I'm gonna keep playing around with it for now. I don't know that I'm gonna keep it like until I finish it. I can say that if I ever do get to the point where I do finish this foundation, I don't foresee myself repurchasing it. It's not like a horrifically bad foundation by any means. It's just not like the best. It's really, really, it's hilarious to me because they list it to be medium to full coverage foundation. And like truly, I don't care what the coverage level of foundation is. I know my personal preferences, but I would never shit on a product for having lower coverage than what I prefer. But when you advertise yourself as being a medium to full coverage foundation, you better fucking have medium to full coverage. If you don't, then you're just lying. Like, it's definitely a really sheer. I even tried it with a brush, and the brush made it even sheerer somehow. It does kind of build up a little bit, but it's just like, it's just okay. It's also pretty expensive for what it was. But I'm gonna keep it for now, play around with it a little bit more. Maybe my next declutter, you know, 6, 8, 10 months from now, maybe then I'll get rid of it. Who's to say? Maybe I'll find like a perfect pairing for it and I'll use it all up because I'm like, wow, this pairing is delightful. But next up is the Nars Natural Radiant Longwear Foundation. I am in the shade Dewy, I think is how you pronounce it. As you can see, I have used almost all of it. I really, 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 really like this foundation. However, I really, really don't ever reach for it again, like anymore. You could find very similar foundations to this in cheaper formulas, cheaper brands, cheaper everything. You don't have to spend this much money for this foundation. I purchased this to wear it for my wedding because it was a very highly rated foundation for wedding photography, because pictures get taken at your wedding. And I do really enjoy it. I just don't ever reach for it anymore. It's just not like, it's to the point where you have to mix it. Like, you always have to shake it. It kind of separates a little bit, and like you have to mix it, but when you go to like mix it around, it like all goes everywhere, and then the pump doesn't really do much of anything anymore. I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of it, but by get rid of it, I mean I'm gonna clean the bottle up, and then I'm gonna put it in my like, this thing is special to me area with like makeup that like my husband's given to me that like I don't wear anymore because I've found better formulas, but like it has like special meaning to me. So I'm gonna clean this up and then put it in my little drawer of things that I don't want to get rid of because I love them too much and they have good special memories for me. Next up is another recent purchase for me. This is the Physicians Formula Butter Believe It Foundation. I am wearing this on my skin today, mixed in with the L'Oreal Infallible Freshware Foundation. I am in the shade Light. Really perfect shade match for me. I nailed this online purchase for this shade match. Shade range in this foundation, awful. Fucking horrifically bad. Has the really nice Physicians Formula butter product scent to it that I do enjoy. It lasts really well on my skin. It looks good, good coverage, good hydration. I really like this. I purchased this at the same time as the e.l.f. CC cream, so I was kind of comparing them head to head. This one does last better on my skin than the CC cream does. It's a little bit higher coverage. It builds up better without getting like all fucking weird. So I do actually really like this foundation. Just Physicians Formula, get your fucking shade ranges together. It's embarrassing, honestly, for the rest of us that you can't figure that out. This one is the Milani Conceal and Perfect Foundation. I am in the shade 00AA Ivory. This is a very, very thick foundation, so I tend to mix this with foundations that are thinner. This one's also another one that mixes really well with Freshware, like really, really well. But this is very thick, very full coverage, pretty hydrating, pretty long lasting. It can like start to get a little funky if you put too much on because it is such a thicker foundation that you can sometimes end up with like a thicker layer on your face. So you definitely have to go in with very thin layers, but it's really, really good coverage. I do really enjoy this. I can't really speak to whether or not I would repurchase this. I'll kind of have to see how I feel when I actually do finish it. I really like the bottle, by the way. But when I do finish it, we'll kind of decide whether or not I'm sad that it's gone or whether or not that like, you know, we'll see. Last but certainly not least, this is the LA Girl Pro Coverage Foundation. I am in the shade Porcelain. It's just such a mediocre foundation. Super thin, pretty decent coverage, lasts decently on the skin. It's like kind of glowy, but like kind of not, kind of satin-ish, kind of not. It's really, I feel the same way about this that I do about the Fit Me foundations. It's just kind of a boring foundation. Like, it's just kind of okay. So I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of it. It's just, it just is what it is. All right, so earlier I said I had 16 primers and 14 to 15, depending on how you count it, foundations. Now I have 11 primers, and I already forgot 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 8 to 9 foundations. So I feel like I did a pretty decent job. I feel satisfied. I feel like my vanity has these two little cabinets that sit on top of it, and that's where I keep my foundations and my primers, and I feel like I was always like digging around in them to try to find what I was looking for. I would just use what's right at the front because I didn't feel like digging around. So I feel like now I'm gonna have like a better view of everything, so I'm pretty excited about that. I hope that you guys enjoyed today's video. I hope that you enjoy my declutters. Please subscribe for more declutters in the future. I do them relatively often. I just recently did a cheek declutter. I've done a lip declutter relatively recently. I also have like my very first ones that I did not that like last summer or so. I did like a whole series where I went through everything, and yeah, I'm just like staring at my makeup trying to see if there was something else that I was gonna declutter in the near future, but like there's really not, because I declutter my my palettes by doing my palette Throwback Thursday series, where I'll use it and then decide at the end of the video, like, do I love this or do I want to get rid of it? So I'm not going to do a palette declutter video. So I guess, yeah, I think I'm taking a little bit of a break from the declutters because I've now recently gone through everything. But with that being said, I am still on the hunt to go find another backup of or a replacement for the First Light primer. So I do have a couple primers that I have waiting for like a drive up order at Ulta. So comment down below and let me know what your favorite primer and foundation is. I would love to know. Please subscribe if you have not already. It would mean the world to me. Like this video, ring the bell, do all the things. I hope you guys have an awesome day, and I'll see you guys in my next one. Bye!